let's do a live stream. All right, so let's check out this chat here. Tasha. I'm really sorry about that. You've asked me questions before, and yeah, I guess I pronounced your name wrong. Got a question about retrospective record MIDI in Reaper. There's a script that I've never used. I haven't had a chance to check that out yet. What's up? Hi, guys, and yeah. All right, so I'm here. If you have any questions about Reaper, let me know. And I'm going to switch to different profile. There we go. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat and yeah, let's just hang out. No agenda, anything like that. So Fridays, I normally do a video, but I was just feeling burnt out yesterday, so I decided not to. Feeling good today, so I did a quick tutorial first thing in the morning, did some testing of this OBS software that I'm using for streaming. And yeah, so I got it recorded, and now I'm just getting the audio and video exported. So what you're seeing here right now is ScreenFlow software, and I'm just going to export my stuff to edit later on today. So Oscar's here somewhere playing on the iPad, I think, but he'll probably come interrupt me later on. How'd you guys feel about the April Fool's video? Oscar really loves to play around in Reaper. He has no idea what he's doing most times, but he did do a lot of that stuff in the video on his own, and he's constantly like practicing talking to people and like doing vlogs and episodes in the mirror. It's pretty funny. Question from Sean. Do you find macros to be effective in editing? Which one specifically? I have a very customized Reaper setup. And I have a lot of videos on it. But basically, let's see. Let's just get some audio in here or something like that. Basically, I set it up so that I have all my most used actions on my left hand. So in the home position with my index finger on F, I have a lot of the shortcuts that I need right there. And so it would look like this. And I'll probably have to zoom in here so you guys can see this. So I use A to trim the start to the cursor position. I use S to split. Let's see, I use D to crop to the selection. Often if I have split things, and let's say I want to delete this section and I've just used A and S, I'll hit X to cut it to the clipboard. And for me, that's as good as delete most times. But I do also have, I think it's Option S. No, I don't know. Option Shift. I got some button to trim the ends, but I forget which one. If I want to split in the time selection, I think it's Alt Option S. I don't use that one as much. Let's see. Those aren't really custom actions. All right, I guess it is. Custom trim left. Trim items left of cursor. Move cursor to start of items and go to cursor. I mean, it's pretty much the same as trim items left of cursor, but it's just slightly faster doing it this way with the extra functions there. I have another one for custom trim right, and that's the one I was looking for. It's Control S. I almost never use that because after splitting my my item selection is usually on the right side, so I just hit X if I want to trim or delete the end. I use a custom action for deleting within the time selection. That looks like this. Remove selected area of items and select all items. See, if you just use this action, remove selected area of items, it's going to keep the left and right sides of your selection selected. And then if you want to move or cut or anything like that, it's just you have to unselect everything first. So I just make it all in one part. So I just do a right drag like that, and then command delete, and it deletes that section, clears my time selection, and yeah, that's working really well for me. Let's see. I've got Q set to show requeue. I've got E set to I've got W set to stretch markers to grid. I have E on radial menu, and I'm still not really using that all that much. I wish I was, but I haven't got around to customizing it yet. Let me know if you want me to keep going on that. This chat is delayed, so I'm just going off on that topic, and I could talk about that all day, but now I'm losing track of where I was in the chat. So yeah, just to summarize, Sean, think about what happens after you, let's say you make a split. Do you want the left side of your selection or your split to be selected, the right side, both sides? A lot of programs use both sides, and I find it annoying. So yeah, I like when I make a time selection and I do something to it, I usually want my selections to be cleared. You could, and if I'm splitting, I usually want this right side to be selected. Otherwise, sometimes it's like 2 clicks. You have to click it to select it and then click it again to like move it, things like that. Okay. Cheap free compressor with sidechain input, accept recomp. That's a good question. I have a couple sidechain compressors kind of bookmarked here. There's the Rocket compressor from Stillwell. If you don't have it registered, it's going to reset your settings. So that's not a good long-term solution. But this plugin is pretty cheap. There's Isotope Trash 2, which is not cheap generally, but you can. I got this one on sale. I think it was like $20 or something like that. Really cheap. Cool plugin. I don't use it a lot, but cool for what it does. Other than that, there's like the Waves plugins. The C1 has a sidechain mode. I don't use very many Waves plugins. I think I only own one. I had some others that like expired, so I can't even download them. Good, Owen. I was really kind of nervous about how that video would would come across. We recorded it like a month earlier, and I just figured, yeah, I'll save it for April Fools. And yeah, and it was overwhelmingly positive response. Lots of likes on it. Had like 100 likes. And he's like saying that he does better episodes than I do, which is rude. He's a really rude dude. Sean says, did a portable install and my shortcuts and theme transferred automatically, but not my SWS. Yeah, so SWS is installed separately. You just have to put it into the correct folder, which is the user plugins folder. And it's easier to find if you have a portable install, because it's all in one folder. And if it's not a portable install on Windows, there are two folders, and only one of them is where you put files. Barricade 4, yeah. I have Tone Boosters plugins. I don't have all of them, but I do have that installed. Let's see. Not seeing a sidechain option in this. Who was that? Romario. How do you get that sidechain working? Or is that in response to a different question? I'm not sure. This compressor v3. I don't think this one has a external sidechain. It has a sidechain filter, but no, it doesn't look like I can just add more channels to it. I don't know. They're out there, but probably have to pay for them. What's the future of build in Reaper components like Requeue, Retune? Will they further develop and improve? There is no public roadmap. I'm not involved in the development. I beta test, and yeah, we find out what's happening like the day that they release something. So Reaper 6 isn't in beta yet, so it seems like it's going to be close. But let's see, with Reaper 5 betas, there was from December until August of betas, and then it was released. And we didn't really know exactly which day it was going to be released. It came out the same day that there was a big interview with Justin. So I don't know. I wasn't really ready for it, but yeah. Reaper is popular with Facebook 360 3D audio plugin people. Have you messed with it at all? I have not. I'm just not really a fan of surround and 3D and VR and stuff like that. Just not really interesting to me. I know it is a lot. It is interesting to a lot of people. It's definitely becoming a big part of the industry recently. But just, yeah, I can't afford to get into it, so I'm just ignoring it for the most part. Getting latency when I record MIDI in Reaper. Just in general, well, I did a thing on latency in my last Q&A video, Q&A number 28. And basically when you have latency with MIDI, that usually means that your audio buffer size is too late, or too long. That's in audio device settings. So right now I'm at 1024, which is a very large buffer size, but if you set that to 64 or 128, you should have nearly zero latency. And if it's not that, Then you need to look on your master track and see if there's any plugins that you can disable. And if it's not there, you can go into the monitoring effects chain. And so you can see here, I've got a lot of plugins in here, but most of them are offline. And at the bottom, it will say how much CPU and how much latency is required. If there's a plugin, I don't know what plugins actually has some latency. Oh, here's one. So Tone Booster's Morphit takes 128 samples of latency. My buffer size, let's see, my buffer size is 1024, so it's going to be delayed by 1024. If this number is larger than your buffer size, then it takes multiple buffers to get the audio to the output, and that's going to end up with more latency. So it's always multiples of your buffer. So if my audio buffer size was 64 and this plugin takes 128, all my audio is going to be delayed by 128 samples. Yeah, so usually when people say that they have problems with latency in MIDI, it's usually what they mean is that the audio responding to a MIDI input is delayed. So those are the things I would look at. Yeah. Okay, so back to the sidechain question. Yeah, the EQ has a sidechain. What was that? That new one was EQ4. EQ4 can have a external input, I think. Can it? I forget. Thought it could too. Oh, I forget. But some of those do. I'm sure of it. I just forget which ones. Oh, maybe it was the VST4 or what is this one? VST3 version of it? Sidechain? Nope. So confused. I'm sure that some of the Tone Boosters ones I just forget. Do you use Synology Disk Station or network attached storage device to access media libraries? Tasha, I don't. I used to have a network attached storage, but it died on me and I lost 3 gigs of stuff. And I've never been able to figure out how to get into it. It seems the drive itself is in a weird format that I can't read on anything else. So that's kind of a pain. Right now I'm using USB 3 drives for my sample libraries. Okay. Latency let when I put a reverb on for monitoring while recording vocals. Any tips with reducing this? Yeah, I have a video on that actually. Let me look that up. All right, so I've got this video, low latency recording with effects, how to record with reverb and headphones. And I'll just put a link to that in the chat. You guys can check that out. Oscar just tried to come in, changed his mind. Are you coming in? Want to say hi? Say hi, they liked your video.
Hi.
Okay. What was I doing? What was I looking at? Less known tips, plugins about editing dialogues and interviews. I've got a couple videos on my workflow for working with interviews, both video interviews and podcasts. My podcast editing video is pretty old. So this one is from 2014. I was editing the what's it called? The home recording show. I was editing, the home recording show, and the basic workflow is the same, but the keys that I have, some of the actions to assigned to, have changed. But it's basically ripple editing in that one. You might get some tips for how to do the processing and things like that, or just organizing the session. I've got this video here, which it works for my videos. For when I'm making my videos, it's usually I record for however long it takes, and sometimes I have multiple takes of the same thing, but I don't stop and start. And basically, I just go through and I mark the parts that I like with regions, and then I run this action that puts all of the regions sequentially, or all the contents of the audio within regions sequentially. And by doing that, just one pass real quick of just taking what I like, that just gets rid of most of what I don't like in the video. And at that point, it's actually watchable. And so it's a pretty quick process to do that. What else? That is not a recommended workflow for doing podcasts. Just because it's usually like, or at least the types of podcasts I do, it's like a long conversation, and you're not really kind of doing separate segments, or I don't know. It's just kind of different. It doesn't really work for that. Ripple editing always works to do that kind of stuff. I had something else in my mind for talking about that, but I've already kind of forgotten. Less known tips. For plugins, I don't know. I don't know if it's a lesser known tip, but use multiple stages of compression. Use noise reduction and gating. Use the pre-effects volume envelope on a track. Actually, no, on an item. If you go to the take menu and go to volume envelope, it makes a volume envelope just for this item, or actually for this take, and you can draw things that are too, you can draw a volume envelope for things that are too loud, using some custom actions that I've shared before. You can do things like turning that down by 2 dB every time you click the button, or up. And this is going to look for whatever envelope is under the mouse, which is pretty awesome. I have another one for silencing that area. So when I'm doing a podcast, a lot of my cleanup work is done on the take volume envelope. All right, what else we got? Something about strumming programs like Real Guitar 5. There was a giveaway kind of recently from Focusrite, one of their plugin collective, I think they call it. They had a thing called Strum Session 2. And it was kind of interesting. It's, yeah, how do I play this again? So there's, I forget. I think I'm on the wrong octave. All right, so you like, with your left hand, you choose a strum style, and then you, no, am I doing that wrong? I forget. You can set up, Strumming, auto strumming. I had this figured out like a little while ago, and I've totally forgot. Is it? Okay, strumming keys. Play a chord. It kind of hurts your brain to play like that, but I don't know. It sounds pretty good, I guess, for what it is. It's seems like the only way you can really like play and strum chords. You kind of just tap with your left hand on the strumming keys section, and then choose a different chord with your right hand. Interesting way of doing it. And that one was given away for free just for like a month. Chance to do a video showing how to use drum samples like the Kurt Ballou sample library in conjunction with already tracked live drums. I don't know if I have done that specifically. Where's that other Reaper window? Okay. Thinking about something, I forget what it. Drum sample replacement. Four methods for drum sample replacement, and one of them is creating a MIDI file that you can send to MIDI drums. So that's where I would start with that. So using either dynamic split or using regate to send MIDI, and you just set up a sampler track and send some MIDI into that. Choose which note you want it to go to. Hope that answers your question. I can definitely come back to that. I have another Room Sound library review coming up. It's not released yet. That's kind of what got me burnt out on this week. Did a bunch of recording for that and hate all of it and threw it all away and then had to start over. But I did come up with some cool presets for that library and a new contact routing thing. Preferences, mouse modifiers, MIDI editors cannot select, configure the middle mouse button. Yeah, if it's not there, then you just can't. I don't know. I don't even have a middle mouse button, so I don't miss it. I guess I don't know what I'm missing. Maybe. MIDI editor. Yeah, the MIDI editor context is right drag only, but it might want to do checking the other ones. Maybe none of these have MIDI. Nope, none of them have middle click. I mean, you can always put in a feature request on the forum, but yeah, as far as I know, there's no way of changing that on your own. Sean says, loved your synthetic impulse response video. Makes the reverb feel interactive, if that makes sense. Yeah, that was a really fun video to make. It's something that I had planned for probably years. Like I figured out the whole process, and then I don't know what came up, but I just never recorded a video on it. I was building up a library of my own synthetic reverbs. Let me see if I can find them. See what I got. So I've got 30 of them already made back in 2014, if this date is correct. Yeah, and I just never made a video on it. I probably should have. And once I got into recording the video, it went really smoothly, and I'm really happy that everyone liked that. I don't really use impulse responses for reverbs that much. I love the Valhalla reverb so much that those are always my go-tos when I'm doing a mix. But these are, these are what I use if I have this limitation of I have to use Reaper plugins. I'm gonna use my own impulses that I made, and it's also pretty cool to take other sounds that aren't specifically reverbs. So if any of my patrons grabbed the Acorn sound library that I recently put out, I got some interesting results taking those sounds. Taking, where are they? Taking like the Acorn impacts. So taking like this one here and making that an impulse response, it came up with some interesting results. I put it on addictive keys to make a piano reverb. It was pretty cool. But like, the whole concept is just use whatever. You don't want something that's really sort of tonal, because then any similar frequencies that go into it are just going to like amplify like crazy. But stuff that's like hits, like you can use a snare drum as a reverb, and put something else through it, and it's kind of has the tone of that snare drum. It's really weird, but it's fun to play with. Maybe not always the best option in a mix, but pretty cool. Don't forget to put a stamp on your volume envelope, otherwise it won't work. Right. Haha. Sean asks, do you use any hardware such as Sonos FaderPort to help you write automation into tracks? I'm tired of using my mouse as a fader and would love to hear any recommendations you have for them. I use the Behringer BCF 2000, which I can't show you. Hang on, maybe I can. It's an 8 fader generic control surface. I use it in Mackie mode, and yeah, it's pretty basic. Just 8 faders that follow the selected tracks. There are buttons to select the track, buttons to mute the track. If I hold down a shift key, I can solo it and record arm with it. Pan knobs, and there's a button to flip the faders to control panning instead. I don't really do a lot of automation writing with it, like not continuous. I do almost all of my automation in latch preview mode with the cycle action. And I'll show you that cycle action. So when I want to write automation, most of the time I want like straight line automation. I just want it to like change instantly for this section. So it's this one. So it's called Global Latch Preview Write to Selection, Global Auto to None. I recently changed that. I think it was just yesterday I changed how that worked a little bit. So it sets the whole project to latch preview mode. Then when I press the button again, it will write any changes to the time selection, and then set the global automation override to none. So what that looks like, let's put on an EQ here. And so I'll make my time selection, and maybe I'll loop it, and I'll put it into my automation arm mode. And you can see that all the buttons on the tracks have turned red. Turned yellow. I was looking at the wrong button. It all lights up and you can start touching parameters and we'll start remembering that automation. So it's not going to be continuous, like as I'm moving it, but all those things will it will know that you're automating those things. And I can change the volume, and I'll do it from the control surface. So there we go, and I'll change the panning. And then when I'm done, I press P, and it writes all that stuff into the time selection. And there's a small transition. I forget how many things that is. Where is it? It's somewhere in here. Automation. I think it's this one. 250. I think it's that one. I wanted it to be a quarter second, so pretty quick transition. And in the preferences, you can customize like what shape these curves are and stuff like that. So anyways, I do like 90% of my automation that way these days. And if I'm not doing it that way, then I am maybe making a selection like this, doing like that, and then deleting one of these points with an alt click and just making a ramp. And then I might like alt drag to change it. Something like that. And because this gets really cluttered, I have a button on the main toolbar to toggle showing and hiding all automation. So that cleans up the project instantly, or clutters it up again if I'm doing automation. And automation will still be read if it's not visible. Hope that makes sense. And other than that, if I didn't use that controller, I would use my MIDI controller, and I have the mod wheel set to the selected track volume. And I mean, it's going to be different on every controller, but if you have a mod wheel that doesn't have a spring in it, it works really well because you can just really quickly get a track level. Let me show the mixer. So moving the mod wheel on my keyboard, if I'm in the right mode, there, you can see that. And it's good for getting really rough levels quickly. Hope that makes sense. Message retracted. What'd I miss? I'll never know. I use middle drag for navigating in the arrangement. Yeah, the hand tool. Be like that. Yeah, there's a, I don't know, I use this stupid Apple mouse. Can you see that? I don't know, I'm looking at this delayed feedback of my video, so I don't know if you can see that. Okay, oh yeah, that Behringer interface or control surface has motorized faders, and they're really noisy. I'm gonna have to mod it, put some felt in it so that it's not distracting. When I open and close projects, or if I have a lot of tracks in the project, it gets noisy. I'll just take some of these, turn them down. You can probably hear that clicking. Super annoying. It's loud. How can I use my external effect rack at Lexicon MX200 as an external effects? Okay, back to my website. I did a video on that fairly recently. I think. Yeah, integrating external effects with Reaper. Yeah, you'll be, after watching this video, you'll be able to connect it with analog or digital cables, sync it through MIDI, all sorts of things, and you'll have no latency issues at all. So I'll just put a link to that. Who was that was asking? There's your link, dude. MIDI Man says, hi, John from NYC. Hello from Vancouver. Say you have MIDI items with text overlay, you want to change the font. Is there a way to propagate the change of font to all items on the track? I wish. Absolutely not. There is no way. It sucks. What is the resolution of my main screen? Do you use other screens? My main screen is 2560 by 1440. Most of my videos are published in 1440p, with the exception of my Q&A videos, which are 1080p because it's mostly done with a real camera. Do I use another screen? Yeah, I have another Dell monitor below my main monitor, and I'm using that right now for keeping track of the chat and OBS, so I can keep track of things going out in the stream. And what else? I use that when I'm editing videos if I want a full-time, full-screen monitor of the video output. How can I switch the look of my virtual MIDI keyboard like Kenny G has done? To be honest, I don't even know what you mean. If you can get Kenny to answer the question, that'd probably be best. I never use it. Kenny G is the other Reaper channel, no offense to you. Yeah, I know Kenny. You can eat it if you want. Okay, throw it away. Oscar had to tell me that I was wasting my toast. Well, if I could just take a stab at changing the look of the virtual MIDI keyboard, that is probably something to do with the theme. So let's just try out some different themes. This is the default nitpicky edition. We'll go to default 4. Looks a little bit different. Alternate. Yeah, so it's all inside the theme. You know, there's not really anything in the inside Reaper to change the colors or anything, as far as I know. Like I said, I don't use it, so it's a blind spot in my knowledge. What's my go-to drum to MIDI method? My go-to is a complicated. Here, sorry, Oscar is being really annoying right now. So hang on a sec. Okay. What was I saying? Drums to MIDI. I have a complicated setup using Slate Trigger. I don't even know if I have it's saved as a template. I hope I do. Yeah, so right, so I have some track templates set up. They have EQ, transient controller, and regate. And that's not even the one I wanted to show you. Well, anyways, you can do this and it'll send MIDI out. So I'm using this to filter and shape the sound of what's going into the gate. The gate is sending MIDI out, and then after that, you would either put in a sampler on this track or print it as MIDI. So yeah, that's not the one I wanted to show you. I may not have even saved it. But there is this kind of complicated method of um, setting up. Let's see, I need 2 tracks. So track 1 will be my source, I guess, and my other one will be my trigger, I guess, trigger out. Is that how I do it? Yeah, I think so. And then whatever is going to be my sidechain. And so I have slate trigger on here. And I need a pre-fader send. And I'm sending, audio out, and I'm only going to the left input. And then I have another send from this sidechain track, and that's sending just on the right channel and pre-fader at unity gain. So in trigger, set up the suppression to like 80% or something like that. So just for example, like the source track is going to be a kick, and the sidechain track is going to be the snare. And so every time the snare goes, the trigger is not going to be influenced by the snare. So the left input is the source sound, the right is the suppression or sidechain input. Yeah, and then I set up this to do MIDI out. So in settings, set it to MIDI out. I pick a note in a channel, usually channel 1, and I don't know, 36 is a kick. And then I put on resynth as my instead of a drum sound, because then I can hear if the little beep from resynth is in time with what I'm putting out. I don't know, just like choose a sine beep preset or something like that. When this is triggering at the same time as the real kick drum or snare drum or whatever it is, it's much easier to hear this coming out than hearing the sound of another snare. And at the end of all that, I record the output in real time as MIDI. So that's my go-to way when I'm getting paid to replace MIDI on something. Complicated, but yeah, that's what I do. I hope you've been able to follow that. I should really go back to the setup where I've first made that and save it as a template, but no idea what project it was that I set that up. But it works great. Once that's set up, it works great. Are there any more questions? I mentioned it earlier. Okay, so the question is, how have you implemented radial menu into your workflow? I haven't yet. I need to customize it. Right now, I'm focused on getting the Elgato Stream Deck integrated into my workflow. That's this thing, which is a 15 button configurable little keypad. As far as Reaper integration, it only emulates the keyboard, essentially. But I've done some video editing with that. It only runs on my laptop right now. So maybe this weekend I'll upgrade my operating system, and then I'll be able to use that and some other stuff that I've been waiting on. Reaper lost some MIDI notes. Is that a known issue? I don't think so. MIDI Man, you're very welcome. I make these videos for myself as much as anyone else, because I would be forgetting all kinds of things, and if I didn't document it as I go, I would be really lost. And when I started out with Reaper, there wasn't really anyone doing videos, and Kenny's stuff was mostly focused on just what's stock stuff. Especially now, he's not covering anything in scripts or extensions. So yeah, so I'm trying to cover all that kind of stuff as well. Have I shown you guys the Crashbox sound library that I've made? I don't think I've talked about that at all, have I? Is there a number one game changer add-on that made Reaper the ultimate DAW for me? It's really just the fact that they don't add more ways to pay as a feature, something that Avid did. You know, integrating a store, integrating subscriptions, all these sorts of things. Just yeah, no, thank you. I don't know, and the number of times I've seen Justin or Schwa responding to a bug report with "oops" and then fixing it immediately is just like, that's what makes me stick with it. All right, so let me explain Crashbox. I have no idea where my video is for this, but okay, Crashbox is a cardboard box filled with junk, and you tape it up and you throw it on the ground, and it sounds like a car crash or something like that. And I think I've got my audio set up right. Let me know if you guys can hear this. Can't hear Reaper? Damn. Okay. Interesting. Should be. Hang on a second. Okay, I think it was just the routing. I don't know if you can hear that now. Yeah, so this was a lot of fun. It's really just a cardboard box with like broken glass and some sand and wood and screws and just junk. But I think it makes some pretty cool sounds. And yeah, so this is going to be something I'm sharing with my patrons. This will be the third sort of little sound library I've been sharing. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of sounds here, and this was recorded with 3 mics, and I did a video recently on my editing workflow, and things are a little bit different when you have more than like just a mono or stereo source. Um, something that I figured out was that when I glue items, I need to regroup things. So I changed my default glue action. Or I thought I did. It must have been on the laptop. No, it's Command Shift G. Custom glue. I figured out that when you glue items that are grouped, you lose the grouping. So custom glue just puts them back into a group. So with editing stuff and you're like doing declicking and denoising and things like that, it's pretty helpful to have things grouped, and then being able to glue them and keep that stuff is helpful. And plugin that I found really useful for doing this stuff was from Boz Digital. Where is that? Called Littlefoot. And so this oomph thing is like a subharmonic synth, and so I use this on the impact sample set just to add some bass to it. I don't remember the settings, but it's something like somewhere around here for the sustain, and then I think it was like 30 or 40 hertz for the frequency, and then blended that in a little bit. In this dry section, there's overall level. This is like the input sound, and when you put on high pass filter enable, it makes a resonant high pass filter. A resonant high pass filter. Let me show you in ReEQ what that looks like. That's one that looks like this with a big peak there. So that's all that is really doing. But those combined with something that's kind of bassy to begin with makes a really great sound. So really thick, beefy impacts. Yeah. So the other sound libraries that I've given away to my patrons have been one called Acorns or Acorn Shells, and it's different like cracks and impacts and scooping sounds and all kinds of stuff. I've got a selection. This is something that always bothers me. Sometimes a selection from a different project is remembered in your Media Explorer. So the file is actually longer than this, but I have no time selection here, but it keeps importing it cropped. So super annoying. Okay. So yeah, I've just been having fun making little like sound libraries of like sound design elements, stuff you can mix together with your own library and your own sound, and hopefully kind of inspire you guys to record your own things. And I had one other one. What was it? record crackles. So these are pretty cool. So these are just different like record crackle start and ends of songs. A lot of records have this cool like uh, end of record section where it just kind of gets in an endless loop, and every record sounded different. So this is just a small library. It's only 20 different samples of different lengths. But I find this interesting for filling in like background, kind of like background noise in minimal sort of drum loops and stuff. And you wouldn't mix it that loud. You'd put it like this under some beat. Do I have... I've got a project somewhere. I don't remember what project it was. This one. So this project here, I was working on it, and I mean it's just this like short loop, but it was sounding really like it sounded like it was missing something. So I paused working on this, created that sample library of record crackles, just so I can put one in this project. Yeah, so it just kind of fills in the gaps and it makes it sound more interesting, even really subtly mixed like that. Oh, and I agree, those acorn samples would make for good bone breaks. I actually found that you can get some interesting, almost like machine gun sounds out of them. I'm gonna close that project and show you that one. And that reminds me of something that I had set up to record a video and I never ended up doing. I better do that before I end up deleting this project. Oh no, the file's offline. Great. Hmm. Try that again. I think it just renamed them. Okay, so... Oh, that's with Decapitator. still got it somewhere. Decapitator. Take out the plugins. And yeah, so this sort of gun sound is just one of the crack samples, one of the impact samples, and repeated with a bit of variation. I hope you guys are still watching. I haven't had any questions or comments come in recently. Okay. It is like it's like a silenced pistol. I think it's pretty cool. And I mean, not obviously not the best, but from one sound source, like a broken acorn shell, I think it works pretty well. Definitely something you can blend in with other stuff. So anyways, I've shown you the 3 sound libraries, and if you guys aren't patrons, you can get this stuff, $1 a month minimum, I guess, or as much as you want. Go to patreon.com/thereaperblog, and yeah, I'd love to have your support. Helping me keep making these videos and stuff. All right, so we've been going for an hour and 16 minutes. Maybe I'll do one more question and then we'll end it. What do you guys think? Hope you guys have been having fun, finding this interesting. I didn't have any plan for today, but I think we've covered some cool stuff. One more question. Who's it going to be? This coffee's really cold now. Sometimes when I copy items from a project to another, the automation points get stretched under them. Do you know how to fix this? If you don't want the automation to come with it, it's a button in the main toolbar, this button here. Move envelope points with media items. So if you turn that off, then any automation won't move with it. And that should work with going between projects. So I'll enable that, and then I'll make a new project. Okay, so I'll take this, copy here and paste, and the automation came with it. And if I turn that off and paste, I pasted without the automation. That makes sense? Is that what you meant? Oh, okay, synced like it was in the original project. I would think that possibly your time base for items is different. If you have it on times, if you have time base for items, envelopes, markers set to time, it should use the marker, the like time base rather than measures, beats, things like that. But if you have it on these other ones and your tempo is not the same between the 2 projects, that's probably what you're seeing. Did you check out FabFilter EQ? I haven't used the newest one, but I've used the other one before, and it's great. I can't afford it. And I mean, I'm pretty happy with ReEQ and the other options that I have. I don't know. Everyone wants another EQ video. I'm not really that interested in doing it, to be honest. Because they all kind of sound the same. But I'm sure the FabFilter is going to win. So like everyone that has the FabFilter plugin already wants me to do the FabFilter plugin in a video, but they already know that it's the best, so why? Okay. Nicola, is there a way to shuffle items in Reaper like in Pro Tools? Not really, not exactly the same. There's ripple editing, but it's not the same. Like, I mean, it moves only the items that are on the right, and ripple editing, no, in shuffle mode in Pro Tools will swap the items if they intersect. The only option is a script, shuffle order of items, but it's not really the same. Let's see. I think it's this one. If I take these two items, well, it might not look right because they're. Yep. I think the items are actually the same, and that's why we're not seeing it. Maybe that one down. I don't know. It seems like it sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. Yeah, we don't have anything that's exactly the same as shuffle mode in Pro Tools. I would like it. It was pretty helpful back when I used Pro Tools. Is there a chord track like Cubase or some alternative? I don't think so. It's been requested. I don't. It's not something I would use, so I don't really keep track of the request for it. But as far as I know, it's not yet possible. How do I route a MIDI input on one device to an output on another? Um, I don't really know what you mean. But let's say it's a synthesizer. I'll take OBXD. So I've got this, and I want to put an arpeggiator between it, or between the keyboard input and the plugin. I could use a plugin like Kernu Cream, and does it have to be playing? I can't remember. I don't remember how to use this. I'll just use a preset. Oh, I forget how this works. How the hell does this work? Anyone remember how this works? The other one's easier, I think. Anyways, the MIDI will pass through on its own. You just need to do MIDI input. If you right click on the 2 in, 2 out plugin button here, it'll go to MIDI input. You can disable the input or make sure it goes to a bus. And here you can replace the MIDI bus, you can merge it, you can disable it. There's 16 different MIDI buses, I think, per track. So you can do fairly complex things, but most people are just going to keep it on MIDI bus 1. So the output of the arpeggiator is going to OBXD. So it just, yeah, when it's off, it's like that. When it's on. So yeah, I think that answers your question, but it should, I should do it automatically. Okay, now I'm looking at chat again. Don't use any plugins, real hardware, MIDI devices. I want my keyboard to control the... Yeah, so... All right, so the controller is connected to the computer, and then you want... you're gonna have to hear the hardware as well. So the easiest way to set this up is with the reinsert plugin. And probably save a preset for whatever hardware you're using. So I've got MIDI going out of my interface port 3. It's going into, it would go into the hardware synth, and then the analog outs of the hardware synth come back to this plugin here, and you want to detect its latency using a really short sound on the synth. So MIDI comes in and plays the sound, and then it calculates the latency. And yeah, then the only other thing you need to do is make sure the track is set to a MIDI input. So whatever MIDI input you need. This plugin will do the routing to whatever channel and port you need. And if you have multiple MIDI ports, it'll do that. So I think that answers your question. You can, using the reinsert plugin for a hardware synth, it basically works like a plugin. MIDI in and audio out. Pretty cool. All right, guys, that is about an hour and 20 minutes streaming. I got some editing to do, and I will see you guys Monday. I'll definitely have a video Monday. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been fun. See ya. Never know how to end these streams. Bye.